The Super Mario series is known for being very lighthearted and fun. The games are like big playgrounds where you can explore vibrant worlds while running through levels at a fast pace, capturing a very childlike feeling. Some of the Mario games like Super Mario 64 did expand past this with areas that felt a little bit more serious, but there was never a Mario game that made me emotional listening to the end credits or focusing entirely on the beauty of my surroundings. Except, of course, Super Mario Galaxy. The tone of Super Mario Galaxy is what truly separates it from the other Mario games. Everything feels more serious and full of life, especially the music. Most Mario games have very fast-paced and action-packed soundtracks which make the player motivated to breeze through every level as soon as possible, but the music in Super Mario Galaxy is the exact opposite. The soundtrack in this game is very slow at times, really letting the experience sink in for the player. You're in the middle of nowhere, traveling across different galaxies and discovering all new areas, so it makes perfect sense to have a slower and atmospheric soundtrack like this one. Usually you would want to get past every area as fast as possible to make progress, but in this game, the music often makes you want to take a step back and relax. Now that's not to say that all of the music in Mario Galaxy is quiet or relaxing, because it's not. There's still a lot of music in this game that gets the player really excited to breeze through a couple of levels and make progress, but in a much better way than ever before. The more exciting songs in Super Mario Galaxy still carry a very serious tone, and the music is just as dramatic and immersive as in any of the other songs. Music like this will just usually play as you fight a lot of enemies or go through more dangerous planets, which adds a lot to the tension. Super Mario Galaxy was the first fully orchestrated Mario game, which adds so much to the soundtrack. Sure, the music would have been phenomenal regardless, but nobody can deny that the music would have been a lot worse without a real orchestra. This is one of the few games that stands out almost entirely for the soundtrack. There are a million other reasons people love this game so much, which we will talk about later, but the music is really the main reason that people love Super Mario Galaxy so much. Not only does the music sound really serious for a Mario game, but it's beautiful in general. Every song fits its respective area perfectly, and works as a great piece of music on its own. I mentioned a second ago that Super Mario Galaxy is not just great for its soundtrack. One of the other reasons the game is so great is the controls. The movement in this game had very high expectations, as you would expect. Super Mario 64 was revolutionary for its movement, and even going back to that game today is great. Sunshine was also very impressive, since in many ways it built on the movement of 64 while also introducing a lot of new ideas. Super Mario Galaxy could have gone in the direction of making crazier and more advanced movement, and in a couple ways it did do that, but in most ways, Super Mario Galaxy actually simplified movement. For the most part, you're just gonna be jumping, long jumping, and spinning. There are a few tricks you can pull in this game, but it's nothing like what you could do in the games that came before it. At face value, Super Mario Galaxy is actually a pretty restrictive game. There aren't a lot of options if you want to completely break a level. Another way Super Mario Galaxy restricts the player is through the camera. Instead of being able to move your camera in any direction you want, the game calculates the best angle for you based on a bunch of things. The size of the planet you're on, how fast you're moving, where a nearby boss is. A lot of people look back at this camera nowadays and say that it's frustrating or something, and I can see why somebody would think that, but I think that it works perfectly fine for a couple of reasons. My main reason is that the linear level design in Super Mario Galaxy fits a fixed camera. Not having full control of what you're looking at would be a big problem in a completely open game where you're meant to roam around anywhere, but Super Mario Galaxy is not a completely open game where you're meant to roam around anywhere. My second reason is that if you look at a Wii and Nunchuck controller, it's not really possible for them to make an open camera while also allowing the player to move in the same way. I guess they could have given the player full camera control with the D-pad, but look at Epic Mickey. That game let the player move with the Nunchuck and control the camera with the D-pad, and the camera ended up being that game's biggest flaw. The camera in Mario Galaxy may be limited, but in my opinion it is still far more user-friendly than the games that came before it. The biggest question at the end of the day facing Super Mario Galaxy was how could they make the platforming just as fun if not better than before with stricter movement and camera controls. Simple. They put all of their energy into the level design. While your options may technically be limited in Mario Galaxy, the way you interact with the world feels completely open. The physics system in this game, which allows you to freely roam around most planets and levels, is brilliant. Long jumping and circling around a planet to do a small shortcut may not be that practical, but man does it feel good. The various ways Super Mario Galaxy limits the player are all hidden very well. Take launch stars for example. Having to create or reach one of these in order to progress in a level actually makes them much more linear and focused, but you'll hardly ever notice that because flying through space every time you reach one of these things looks cool. The levels in most 3D Mario games are big, open zone playgrounds, whereas the levels in Super Mario Galaxy feel a lot more like a big combination of puzzles or an escape room at times. Instead of completely focusing on platforming, which would highlight the limited controls, Super Mario Galaxy puts a lot of focus on its puzzles and atmosphere. That's not to say the game still isn't a platformer, because it absolutely is, but the level design in Super Mario Galaxy has a lot more depth and goes beyond simple platforming. Speaking of the levels in Super Mario Galaxy, oh my goodness do they look great. Most of the levels in this game have completely unique themes and appearances. Whenever you feel tired of the way an area looks in this game, you're already moving on to the next one. To say that getting shot out of a launch star looks cool is a massive understatement. Some of these shots are absolutely beautiful and truly showcase how amazing this game can look. This may not be the best looking game ever or even the best looking Mario game, but it is truly exceptional, especially considering it was made on the Wii, which was extremely underpowered for its time. Seeing a game like this really makes you question if the hardware limitations were actually that bad on the Wii, or if the developers at that time were just lazy and not putting in the effort that was put into a game like this. Melty Molten Galaxy in particular is probably my favorite looking area in the entire Mario series. Some of the shots they were able to create out of this area just leave you dumbfounded and asking for more. Super Mario Galaxy is always surprising the player with new and innovative levels, and that goes far beyond the visuals. It is unbelievable just how many creative ideas are put into Super Mario Galaxy. There's always a new challenge, a new mechanic, a new boss fight, or a new song, and what's great is that they introduce all of it in such a short time span. Something I love about the Mario games is that they don't last for too long. A lot of games like to introduce filler content everywhere and sacrifice the quality in order to make the game longer, but Mario games in general, and especially Mario Galaxy, do the opposite. If you want to obtain 60 stars and beat Super Mario Galaxy for the first time, it'll probably take you around 10 hours, and if you want to 100% the game, it might be closer to 30. That doesn't mean there isn't enough content for a 50 to 60 hour game, because there absolutely is, but instead of spreading the content out as much as possible so that the game can be even longer, Super Mario Galaxy compacts as much content it can into every level, making every single one feel as exciting and new as possible. There isn't a single level in Super Mario Galaxy where you'll come out of it thinking, that was cool, but I wish it was more unique. Creativity is bursting throughout the entire game, and no aspect of the level design was left unchecked. It's hard to even understand how each level in Super Mario Galaxy can be so flawless. There isn't a single gameplay issue in Super Mario Galaxy that stands out, which is exactly why the game is so perfect. One of the last reasons the levels in Super Mario Galaxy are all so great is simply because of how grand they feel. Obviously this is helped out by the soundtrack a lot, but even the layout and visual design of each area makes the game feel so much bigger than it actually is. The feeling of traveling through space, going through different galaxies and conquering them all, I mean seriously, it doesn't get much cooler than that. Sometimes it feels out of place to be playing as Mario, because something this high stakes and cool, it just doesn't feel right. Super Mario Odyssey released nearly 10 years after Super Mario Galaxy, and yet it doesn't feel nearly as big or important, and that's not to downplay Super Mario Odyssey, that's also one of the best games of all time. It's just to say that Super Mario Galaxy is on another level. There isn't much left to say about the level design in Super Mario Galaxy. It really is pretty much the best it gets for the platformer genre, even 17 years later, and it's truly incredible. Something interesting about Super Mario Galaxy is that unlike every other Mario game, there's a decent bit of effort put into the story. As you play through the game, you unlock these little chapters in the library where you can read the short backstory of Rosalina and her companions. This comes completely out of left field, or at least it did for me, because hey, it's a Mario game, why would I expect something like this? The story told in the game is actually pretty good and touching, all things considered. It's pretty short, only lasting about 10 to 20 minutes if you read all the chapters, but it's pretty interesting to follow. The beauty of the story told in Super Mario Galaxy really has nothing to do with the writing itself, and more so just the way they present it. Listening to that calming music in the background that sounds almost like a lullaby adds a lot to the childlike feeling of these pages. The appearance is also really well done. It looks hand-drawn in a way, like a lot of other children's storybooks, but it's completely unique and full of personality. If I were to actually go over the plot of this game, it wouldn't be a very long explanation as the narrative is still relatively simple, but I don't know man, there's still something so special about the way this game tells its story. I would be really interested in seeing another Mario game that at least tries to go for a more serious and focused story like this, because there's definitely some potential. Super Mario Galaxy is no Red Dead Redemption 2 or Hollow Knight, there isn't much of an argument to make for it having one of the best stories or anything, but at the very least I would argue that the plot is significantly better and more interesting in Mario Galaxy than any other Mario game. At the end of the day, Super Mario Galaxy is truly a once-in-a-lifetime kinda game. To see such smooth and fun controls, great level design, beautiful music, and decent storytelling all packed into one game like this is hard to believe. It's no wonder that this game has been the fan favorite Mario game for over a decade now, only being rivaled by Super Mario 64. It's no exaggeration to say that this is undoubtedly one of the greatest games of all time, and possibly the best platformer of all time as well. So many different mechanics, unique worlds, exciting boss fights, and so much more. For how many ideas are presented in Super Mario Galaxy, few to none of them have any noticeable flaws. This is personally one of my favorite games ever, and I know it is for a lot of other people as well.